What's up, Craig?
It's all on you, it's all on me. Can't you see? It's all on you, it's all on me. You and me, can't you? It's all on you, it's all on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care.
Hey, Jeff. I guess it's just going to be a short show today. There's not much to talk about.
That's, every time I do, hey, Craig, or whatever, like, I'm always thinking, okay, how's he going to start? What's he going to lead in with? And yeah, you got me that time. You got me.
Yeah. So this is episode 215. It'll be a memorable one, I think, of podcast versus everyone. I'm Craig Powers. With me, as usual, is Jeff Newser.
That's me.
And Jeff, the the premium membership Slack that we started about a week ago at this point, has been very busy for the last 2 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had this idea like, okay, so podcastversuseveryone.com is our website, right? And you can sign up for a free newsletter. And about a week ago, we started offering premium memberships. And right now, the main perk is you get access to this members only Slack. So if you don't know what Slack is, kind of like an elaborate message board, I guess, like giant chat room. I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, maybe you can come up with a better description. Where Craig and I hang out and talk with readers, and we got about 40 people in there now, just kind of chatting about Cougs. And I thought, okay, well, probably a good time to start something like this, a time when there's lots of stuff to talk about. So it was, heading into the NCAA tournament, the Cougs were in. I'm like, hey, if I offer this, then we can get people to support us, and there'll be lots of stuff to talk about, right? Because like the last thing you want to do is start something like that and then it's dead, right? So I'm like, this will be great. And then of course it was great. We won a basketball game, and then we didn't win a basketball game, and after that I was like, oh well, things might die down a little bit. I mean, there's some Kyle Smith stuff out there, but I guess we'll see. And that's like, holy shit, man. Like, it's just been like one thing after another. It's been, people consoling each other, people being mad. We've been, trading inside information. If you like inside information, we have some of that in there. So it's been wild, man. Like, it's just been, I've been glued to it for days, which probably hasn't been super healthy for my my personal time, but it's been fun to have a large group of smart Cougs to talk with outside of, my Coug Center friends who I typically talk with. So,
yeah, it's been good. One of the first things that kind of happened in the chat, other than talking about the upcoming game, was I landed in Omaha, and the first place I went was a brewery, and it being Omaha, they actually had like a bunch of steaks on the menu. So for lunch, I order a steak. And I have a beer, and I believe it was Mark that says, can we should track Craig's ounces of steak versus drinks in Omaha, and I don't want to give it away. Like, if you join, you could find out what the tally was.
Yeah, it was quite epic though. I mean, if anybody, I'm sure a lot of you follow Craig on Twitter. If you did, then you have some sense of the amount of each that was consumed, but it was pretty damn funny following along while you were in Omaha.
Neither one was healthy for a sustained period of time.
No, it was like people, I think there were folks on the Slack getting genuinely concerned for your health. But it's like I think this is also Mark who has the theory that you actually have two livers and not one. And I would, as your best friend who has been with you many times, when you have consumed ungodly amounts of alcohol, I'd believe it actually, that you maybe are just some sort of like freak of nature that can, some sort of like alcohol processing freak of nature, that can
I will.
handle.
I will say
all
that
of
there was a nice chunk of the drinks that were Jello shots at Rocco's, and then the
Yes,
ni-
yes.
the related bar to Rocco's right next to it, Lefties, which is famous for the College World Series Jello shot competition, and they were doing a smaller one for the tournament. So we came in and WSU was trailing. So we put them healthily on top. I don't know if anyone came back on Saturday night, but we were up by about 60, and we had a lot of help. That I even got some Venmos to help add to it. But I consume lots of those, and I can tell you, they do. It was like every once in a while there was one with a lot of booze, but a lot of them not necessarily super boozy. Not the ones that you make at your house and then you accidentally pour too much vodka in and you're like, oh God.
right.
No, they were. But if anyone wants to know, if you're curious, we talked to the guy that runs Rocco's. If you've ever followed this, it's fascinating.
Yes.
Actually, LSU fans won last year, and they bought over the course of College World Series 68,888 Jello shots.
That's amazing.
And talking to the guy who runs it, I don't know if he's the owner, or he just runs it. But he actually came over at the end of the night, and when his shift was over, he came over that we were at the bar next door, and he brought Jello shots for us. Not that we didn't already have a bunch, but he was telling like it was basically LSU donors were going against each other, see who could buy the most, and they were saying like most of them did get, some of them get consumed, but like it's just impossible. They're buying 3,000 a day. They would give them out to people just in the bar, but it was like even like we bought like 80, and it was hard for us to get rid of those. We were giving them out to hit random people and stuff. So like that was nuts. Like if I hope WSU won, unless Iowa State fans got happy and went to Rocco's. It didn't seem like a lot of the college basketball fans were going there because it was right. Rocco's is like right next to. Now, the arena and the baseball stadium are right next to each other in Omaha, but Rocco's is on the other side of the baseball stadium. So like the baseball stadium's between, and there's a bunch of bars over by the arena too that you kind of see right when you come out. So I'm guessing like not a lot of the basketball people made it there. But basically I had one Steve, Scuba Steve on Twitter. We basically texted him like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, I'm at Rocco's having Jello shots. And I was like, all right. Like, so we like hopped in a Uber or whatever there. But in an Uber, hopping in Uber in Omaha means you order it and it comes like 10 to 15 minutes later. It is not a super Uber friendly town. But anyways, so yeah, that was a big chunk of it. There was a lot of other big chunks of it. But yeah, Omaha is fun. But yeah, we can talk about that in a little bit. But we got some other crap to talk about.
Like what?
So it's been a very busy Monday and Tuesday, and Tuesday and Wednesday, Monday and Wednesday.
I know. What even day is it anymore, Craig?
What even day? I don't know. It's Wednesday when we're recording.
What even is time at this point?
Was Kyle Smith on Tuesday or Monday? I don't even remember.
That was on Monday.
Okay.
Kyle Smith was on Monday.
On Monday, we kind of start hearing about him to Stanford. Obviously, we heard it. Everyone kind of heard about that a month ago. But kind of on Saturday night, it just starts to feel like it's rolling towards that, which was not a good combo. When I'm out after the Iowa State game, no, I was not like hearing that bit of info and then like. Recovering from the season ending, it just like, oh, by the way, on top of this, watching like Kyle Smith in tears and all this and hugging people and stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's probably a reason those tears are as big as they are. So you hear about that, and then Sunday, the rumor mill was pumping. Like, it was, so it just became kind of an inevitability. And then it obviously was announced on Monday. Yep. But seriously, Jeff, I've seen it compared to like, the reaction is so different than when Tony Bennett left. But there's just something about this where there's such an understanding as to why Kyle wanted to leave there are many reasons that make sense. One, he's potentially facing a pay cut at Wazoo. He potentially, getting downgraded to a league that he used to coach in and thought he was taking a big step up to come to Wazoo to get out of that league. And just being in the Bay Area, he had apparently, there was this, people had talked about, we had heard from people that Stanford was like a dream job for him. And when we looked at it kind of just from a basketball perspective, we're like, that's not that good of a job for basketball. It's really tough to get people in. Like, he's really relied on transfers, but you kind of have, but there it's like you got the guys and you hope they stay and they're not Harrison Ingram.
Yep.
But really, I think what really touched people's hearts like today, and something we knew was part of it was the Stanford Autism Center and him having his son Bo, 13-year-old I think son, being able to I don't get treatment. I don't know if it's treatment or just get be in front of people who are experts in autism and the help he could get from there. And it obviously meant a lot to Kyle. He broke down in tears. So there's just so much of it where it's just like I couldn't, like I'm so happy for him, and I feel like I should be mad, but I'm not. Like, I'm sad that he left, but I'm just so happy for him because he's just in a sport where there's so many just sleazy coaches. Like, he just doesn't fit that bill at all.
Right. Yeah. He's, of course we're disappointed, right? Like, we wanted him to stay forever. But it was, look, you and I, his name was floating around the Stanford job for a while. You and I had heard that he was, more in the mix there than what was sort of out like public. Like, the public stuff was sort of like, gee whiz, sure looks like Kyle might be good at Stanford. Stanford should look at Kyle Smith. It was that kind of stuff. Like, John Wilner, did that kind of stuff. You and I kind of had heard that, like, nah, it's legit. Like, it's legit. And this was, weeks before Jared Haas was fired after losing to Kyle Smith 3 times. Right. And so, but you and I, we just sort of were like, nope, don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it right now. We're having fun. We do not want to think about Kyle leaving. And then, as the weekend went on, it was, and then after the game, like, and you can speak, more to what happened after the loss to Iowa State, but, you could just tell from the stuff that I could see, the quotes, just the wistful nature with which he was talking. It was just like, this is goodbye, right? Like, he said stuff that was, could have been taken to be like, well, maybe there's a chance. And a lot of people, interpreted that way. And I even maybe was like, well, maybe, but at the same time, just the way that he seemed to be soaking up every moment, really basking in it. I was like, this is, I really, at that point, all I was hoping for is, maybe I can get, just like one weekday after this happened to like, just sort of enjoy it and, talk with my friends and my coworkers and
like,
all the people that I didn't see over the weekend. And I could just be like, and then maybe on Tuesday break my heart. Right. But our heart was broken. We heard about it, Sunday night, that it was probably a done deal. And so then it was, and maybe it was, and then, by, I don't know, whatever it was, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. it was done. And so that, honestly, that's the only part of it that really kind of bums me out, is I felt like it really kind of took away from, we should have been able to celebrate a little more. We should have been able to, I think, bask in the, and this is not to blame Kyle. Like, the timing is the timing, and I get it. Like, that's not like I'm mad or something, but it really fucking sucks that, like, we didn't get to, really just kind of enjoy even the Iowa State game, which we'll talk about in more detail later, but like, they didn't play bad. Like, they didn't play bad. They played like well enough to win if they had been able to hit some more shots. So, I mean, it was just the sort of thing, put up a hell of a fight against Iowa State. I mean, that's the kind of thing you should be able to like enjoy. And it kind of felt like to me that got, snatched away from us a little bit because all of a sudden we're talking about Kyle and then, the next day we're talking about the next thing. We'll get to that in a sec. But anyway, it's just that kind of bummed me out. But just the way that you mentioned Tony Bennett, and actually, you know what, before I get to that, why don't you talk about the scene after the game and the way that Kyle was just, like I said, just seeming to sort of like want to soak up the whole atmosphere even after a loss.
Yeah, like it was him and I'd say primarily Jalen Wells, and they did a very quick video with kind of like some very epic music, and that really like made it feel like the WSU media people kind of knew too. But yeah, it was just it was tough. He was coming out, he was waving to all of us, he was talking a lot of big donors and stuff and people with the program. Like the crypto Cougs, Lance in the front, like that he's done a lot, like getting stuff for players and all that. And so I think they've developed a relationship. And then, he hugging some of the guy, other people in the front. Obviously, his wife is up there in the front and his kids. But he's just waving to all of us and like we're all screaming. You're trying to chant, "Thank you, Kyle." Just like can't get it out because like the season's over. This incredible season's over. So I was crying because of that. And then just like when he comes out, it's just like you feel like this might be the last time. And I don't even know if it is. And I wasn't really thinking about that in the moment, but maybe deep in my mind I was. And I was just, I couldn't even get out the "Thank you, Kyle," even though I wanted to. Yeah, it was just, we were just waving and we were clapping. And it was an incredible moment to just sit there and clap for these players, clap for this coach after a loss. Like no one was angry. Now I was, feeling some anger in the last about 2 minutes of the game when this Iowa State fan was somehow in our section and was chirping at us, and I maybe shouted him down a little bit. That probably helped me expel some of that anger. But it's okay. I made his girlfriend mad at him, so that's all that matters.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Shame is always a powerful tool. So
yes. But yeah, but by the end it was just it's over. But you were just kind of feeling like, wow, this is incredible. Like we're sitting here at NCAA tournament. The game didn't go as well as we wanted it to, but we're all here. Like the I don't know how many Cougs it was. It was like maybe 1,000, maybe less. Maybe 500. I don't even know. Like it, obviously a tough place to get to. It was not cheap to get to
on short notice.
But yeah, like just all those Cougs are there. Like the Cougs I met, it was such like it was just a dedicated bunch. Like
yeah.
Like the people that made it there were done. They're obsessed with team. They're willing to spend that money. They're willing to, and they have that money. Obviously, there's that part. You have that money. I know there's plenty of Cougs that would have loved to go. That just like it was too much, and that's what was a bummer at being all the way in Omaha. But anyone that did, like, it was a big deal. And it was cool. I got to meet a lot of Cougs, and we were just all like, we were bummed, but we were just so grateful that we got to do this. And so that end, when they're coming out and greeting us, which I'm so happy they did, instead of like going back to the locker room, and they could have shared a moment with each other, but instead they shared a moment with us, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, like and after that, it's just almost right out of the walkout arena, I'm already hearing about the Stanford stuff, and that kind of like brought me down more. I was already sad about losing. And I had gotten questions like all weekend from people, from my friends, like, do you think he's staying? Do you think he's leaving? And I kept saying what you and I like, I would say, I would often say like, no, I don't think he's staying, but also, can we not talk about this? Yeah. And so like, I don't want to talk about this. And then I kind of let it out at the end. Like we were getting some food after the game, and I was just like, he's leaving, man. He's leaving. And I was just like, there was no more putting off that emotion.
Yeah.
Like, cause I just felt like, well, he's gone now. And there was a lot of people like throughout the weekend that I talked to that were optimistic that he would stay. And so that was kind of building my optimism. People that are, connected and following the program that would say, I think he stayed. And that was definitely building my optimism. I definitely thought, I remembered how donors came together quickly and raised a bunch of money to like meet Tony's demands of like charter flights. And it was primarily charter flights. And we saw that same thing happened. Good reporting from Coug fan.
Yep.
The same thing happened. $2.5 million are raised. And I think that just I love that happened, but also like, man, if we could get not necessarily that much support, but any of that more support, like ongoing, like between 2008 and now, like it probably wouldn't have been 16 years if we just had like a sustained basketball. They had like if the basketball excellence fund was sustained, but it's constantly stay. We probably wouldn't have to deal with these long droughts, these coaches leaving, all this stuff. But honestly, if you think about it, they raised all that, and Kyle still left. And Kyle had said, he said in a spokesman that he was quoting a spokesman article that he thought to himself, if we win the national championship, am I going to stay? And he said no. Like, I don't think I would, because that's how much the Stanford job mean to him. Yeah, I can't be mad. I keep thinking I'm going to be mad at him, and I'm just not. I'm just sad he left. That's all.
Yeah. And I think that, so you mentioned Tony and the way that Tony left, and, this all just, it feels so different. And I think that, okay, so my feelings on it, well, number one, just, with Kyle's been the head guy for 5 years. And Tony was, the head guy for 3 years, even though he was an assistant under his dad. Like, his dad was obviously the face of the program and, sort of a larger than life personality. Right.
Yes.
And, my own feeling about Kyle was like, we had been to such depths under Ernie, and the program was improved right away, and there was steady improvement, and you could tell they were well coached. And even though they did not make an NCAA tournament until this year, you and I spent, the first 4 years of his tenure just being like thrilled, right? Like, hey, we're competitive again. We play interesting basketball. We're not boring. We're not, whatever. Okay. So maybe Isaac Bonton, is throwing up a weird, wild, layup or whatever, but it's like, hey, you know what? We're winning games that we haven't won. We're being competitive in the conference. We're finishing in the middle of the pack. Like those are things that are like huge improvements. And when you're, basketball junkies like us, it's super fun. Right. And then, this year happens, and it just like, it brought so much joy. And you just like, it's just like, Kyle is a really easy guy to root for. The staff is super easy to root for. The players were super easy to root for. And not that obviously like Tony Bennett's teams were easy to root for too, but it's just like, like everything about this just felt really, really good. And, Kyle was in the whole process as it became clear, okay, so this, the success is sort of the monkey's paw, right? It's like, you get what you want, but like what's on the other side is worse. Right. If the team goes 500 this year, Kyle Smith is our coach next year. Like it's
right.
It's one of those things, but even as it became clear, okay, we're on this rocket ship, and Kyle is, going to get all kinds of attention, and, he's at a good age. He's got lots of experience. Like, he's going to be desired. Right. But even as it happened, Kyle he hadn't made any promises about like, hey, I want to be here for the long haul. I want to see what we can build here. All that stuff. He was very transparent about things, especially the last couple of weeks. And as it turned out, the time frame came out in Greg Wood's story that he had actually interviewed for the Stanford job, basically between the end of the regular season and the conference tournament, which is sort of like, like that's super wild because Haas had not been publicly fired yet. I think that people were like, yeah, he had been told before already that he was losing his job, but still it's like basically Smith was interviewing for the job of the team that ended up being his first round opponent, which was sort of like really funny. But he just was very honest about like, hey, you know, we've built a good program here, and I don't remember the exact wording, but you know, we deserve to be compensated as such. And I'm like, yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable position. And then, you know, he goes and takes the job. And before he does, you know, all the stuff he does today, talking about, you know, Stanford being his dream job and whatever. I mean, those are things we had heard, but like before we heard it from him, he posted what was just a really amazing, classy, heartfelt goodbye, right? To all of us. And you can tell when those things are written by somebody else, and you can tell when they're not. And on this one, I mean, maybe he had an editor, but I mean, there was a typo in there. Like honestly, I think he wrote it, and because it just sounded like him. And you know, you look at it and you go, man, you can't, you know, back to what you said before, you can't fault the guy. You're like, God, like, you know, he wants to go. He loves this job. He has thought this is a big job. I mean, he was at for people who don't remember, St. Mary's. He was at St. Mary's as an assistant for 9 years, I believe. And it was during Mike Montgomery's heyday down there. Right. So he had like a front row seat to everything Montgomery was doing as basically with Stanford as a powerhouse. So not a shock that that's a job that he would think could be good again. I don't agree. like I think that's a really rough job because they don't take transfers. So guys can leave, but you can only replace them with freshmen. That's a tough spot to be in. Now I think he thinks he can get guys to stay, you know, more power to him. But, you know, so I think that was the main thing. I do think that NIL, he said it in the story, right? NIL and the conference, you know, there's no getting around that those were factors, right? Like WSU's NIL is pretty limited. We're heading to the WCC. You know, it was a step backward for him professionally to be heading, you know, back to the WCC. And, you know, and frankly, I don't blame him for not wanting to fight that battle. As much as it sucks for, you know, cause we're left doing it, but I don't blame him, I guess. And then the Bo stuff, you know, you mentioned. So yeah, you know, all of that put together, extremely different from Tony, who snuck onto an airplane and jetted out of town and never looked back. Like no real goodbye, say, like, nothing.
Tony kind of, he made it seem like he was going to stay a lot. And
he let everyone believe it.
Yep.
He said things to that effect. He let everyone believe it. So, yeah.
So when he stayed and there wasn't really, you know, he didn't go to Indiana or Marquette or, you know, like whatever. I think it was the year before. And so then when he take those Big Ten jobs, you were like, we'll be good.
Yeah. We're good. We're giving him everything he wants.
Yeah. That literally did. He was the first $1 million.
We literally gave him everything he asked for.
Yep.
You know. And
he was still in a, you know, he didn't have all the other stuff going on. You know, he never worried about guys. He did have guys transfer out, but they were, you know, Okoye had transferred out, and I know he was a leading scorer, but he definitely wasn't valuable to that. Like in terms,
he wasn't built for Bennett ball.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was just different feelings. I was also a lot younger. I don't know. I was 23.
I don't honestly, I don't think that's the difference. Like the way everybody else is reacting, like you can see, like we're all feeling the same way, that this is different, that Kyle has handled this as well as you possibly can. And I don't think anybody faults him. With Tony, it felt like, you know, I'm going to sneak out the back door while y'all aren't looking and jump on a plane out there at Bowie. And somebody just happened to be out there and recorded it. Like nobody knew. And when he got there, he was like, hey, thanks, Washington State. And so Virginia. And it was just like, fuck, like, man. Especially for a guy who, preached the values that he preached, right? The whole, you know, those five pillars crap and the, you know, thankfulness and gratitude. And I'm like, oh, you know, where's the thankfulness and gratitude for the school? Anyway, whatever. It's not a Tony Bennett podcast. It's a WSU podcast. So anyway, Kyle Smith, thrilled for him. We're both thrilled for him. You know, the fact that he's not in our conference now, I guess we can be very excited when he succeeds. So that's great. And yeah, as far as do we want to talk about what happened the next day, or do we want to talk about who might replace Kyle first?
No, I think we should talk about what happened the next day because it definitely impacts the other thing.
That's a good point. That's a good
It was, well, the next day, and then was it? Yeah, and then today is the day after. Yeah, that's right. Like, wow,
Yep.
This week has been.
I know, right? It's like,
Like, I
dude,
felt-
it's
I-
Wednesday. It's
I feel
Wednesday
like-
night. It has literally not been 7 days since, or like a week ago, you were in Omaha getting ready to watch the first game against Drake. Like
Yeah.
that was 7 days ago.
Well, I think as we're
This is
recording, it
insane.
would have been around the end of the game. But yeah, I was like, oh no, it's Wednesday. Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, it would have been getting ready, as in
It's insane.
having a lot of steak and booze.
I know.
But yeah,
you were trying to
I know,
convince
like,
me to
it's-
come. That was the other part.
Yeah, definitely. We were trying.
You were trying.
But yeah. Yeah, it seems like, that from the end of the Iowa State game to now, it just seems like a month, man.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be like, this can't have been the next day, but it was. So by Monday, even some on Sunday, there was these rumors of Chun to UW,
Yeah.
and they just kept. I started hearing it from so many people
Yep.
that, like, the first time you hear it, you're like, oh, we've been told Chun's going to wherever every fucking time that there's a job open. So,
Yep.
but then it was Chun to UW. Someone's like, oh, I've heard Chun to UW. I've heard Chun to UW, and now it's to the point where it's like, maybe we're all hearing it from the same person, but I don't think these two people, I know that many of the same people. And like, this has seemed very real. And sure enough, it was. WSU's athletic director, Pat Chun, is now WSU's former athletic director. It's funny. I saw him in Omaha at halftime of the Iowa State game. We're all walking out to the concourse, and one of my buddies says hi to him, and I turn, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Craig," and he fist bump. And sorry, I'm not trying to like brag or anything, but yeah, he like listen to the fucking podcast. I hope you're listening to this one, Pat. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
But I turn, he fist bumps me. He's like, "Where's your head at?" Like, he's like asking me like, what's going on with the game? Like, and obviously I don't think he would even, maybe he thought about UW job at that point. But they probably, you've talked about maybe he was a candidate before. You could talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, just the rumors kept building, and then sure enough, it was right in the morning on Tuesday. It's like, yep, Pat Chun is leaving. I can't remember who reported it first, but whatever. We knew it before that reporter. So
Maybe it was Pete Thamel.
Pete Thamel. So Pat Chun signed a 6-year deal at UW. Yeah, so he's now the University of Washington athletic director. The University of Washington is where Pat Chun went.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yep.
off. Like,
Fuck off. Fuck all the way off. Fuck all the way off and then some.
like,
Look, if he had gone to Washington a year ago, I would have been like, man, that sucks. That's rude. I would have been like, fuck you for going to Washington, but whatever, I guess. But now, in the midst of everything that has happened, after having a front row seat to all the shit that Washington has done to absolutely annihilate athletics at Washington State University, and then be like, yeah, you know what I want to do? I want to go work there. Like, holy shit, man. Like, I can't even, like, it calls into question. I mean, look, you and I kind of wrote about this. More other people have written about it. Vince Grippi wrote about it. I mean, it's like all this stuff starts coming out, which of course that happens when the guy leaves. But, we're all like insisting, right, that we have heard these things in the past, that this isn't just in the last 2 days, right? But that there were things that people didn't like. I mean, and I had some personal experience with that. We've had Mark Holinsky on the podcast before. The way that, Pat handled Tyler's passing was terrible. So it's not like he was perfect, but a lot of things kind of got excused away for various reasons, right? With Tyler, he'd only been on the job for a few months or whatever. And then, with June, it was like, well, again, he hasn't been here that long. He doesn't really understand, June Doherty, right? She was not a great women's basketball coach, but she was, classy as hell and treated people really well and cared about her players and did some awesome stuff. And, she was just sort of unceremoniously shown the door. And, so there's just like this stuff along the way. And then, just more and more stuff, starts piling up. You start hearing this stuff, but it's also like he did some okay things. Like he did some good stuff. He's a good fundraiser. He brought in Kyle, obviously, and Cammie, and, maybe he stumbled into Jake Dickert, but also he made the call to give Jake Dickert the permanent job. And that seems like a good decision at this point. And, but then you start going, man, if he's willing to make this decision, like what does that say about him? Like, does it say that he's actually a horrible decision maker? Does it say that he was a backstabbing snake the whole time, like Nick Rolovich accuses him of?
Yeah.
Right. Like, does it say that, I don't know. I mean, like you kind of just go like, I don't know, man. Like, does it say that he's like desperate? Right. And not necessarily desperate to get away from Washington State, but desperate to advance his career because it hasn't happened yet. And now he's going to the Big Ten, to where he wants to be because he was at Ohio State forever. Like,
he just didn't have to move as far as he thought.
Yeah.
Both of us thought about this like early is when it, we always talk about, everyone talks about how Jed Cohen basically put UW in the Big Ten and then bolted to the initial West Coast Big Ten school,
right,
and USC. And so it's like, wow, it kind of seems like she did that on purpose. Kind of. Chud was part of putting this fucking Apple Cup agreement together where we're going to play in Seattle 3 times in the next 5 years, and we already played in Seattle last year, in a game that a lot of Cougs were like, no thanks. I know some Cougs are still wanting it, but honestly, I'm no thank you. I don't really care if we play this game anymore. Fuck that university. And now he was part of putting that together, and now he's on the other end. He'd be benefiting from it.
Yep.
I'm like the biggest draw in the Apple Cup and Lumen is not going to be, for many people, not going to be the football game. It's just going to be, will we see Pat Chun and can we boo him? Like
he will be lucky if all that happens is booing. Like that like if it's just booing, then I mean I'd say he got off pretty easy. He's gonna get some choice words if he goes anywhere near any Cougs. Like
I imagine he'll be in a box and not really leaving that box.
I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine that he would, leave.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, ADs love to walk around the field and press the flesh. I don't know if there's going to be, if the seating setup is going to be, segregated. I have no idea if it's going to be that or if everybody's just going to be.
It better be. It'd be really, it's the only way it's good. It's best if it's half and half. But
I agree. But also, I don't know if that's what they're going to do. If they do it that way, he's going to plant himself on one side of the field and make sure he does not go near the other side of the field. And I mean, Kirk Schultz even came out with some as strong of words as you will hear from a sitting university president.
That was
tonight.
Pretty candid. That was pretty candid.
Yeah, he was really.
I was impressed.
Yeah, Coug fan did an interview with him. He was pretty candid about what a treasonous move, I guess. He didn't use that word, but it was. I mean, he sort of like danced all around the idea.
I mean, it basically
this is being a traitor.
He basically says like it's this institution has been putting us through hell for the last year. Not even a year at this point, like 7 months.
Yeah,
and now you're just going there,
and you're going there. Yeah, He's like, if it had been,
Like-
I don't know, Iowa, he starts naming these other schools, but Washington? And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Somebody else, like, we're not crazy for being bitter. Like, yeah. So anyway, fuck him. You know,
I think, but here's like the AD leaving. It's never it's not like oh God we're screwed type
right.
scenario, because like a lot of ADs like if you're getting like the ADs that are like educated in administration and all that, they got people like Chun, like there's not a lot of variance in those ones. Like they all have the same skill sets, you know. Yeah.
And
but
they can be quite bad if you get a bad one.
Yes, you could get
but
a
it's
bad
like,
one.
But it's like most of them aren't bad. Most of them are just, you know, whatever. And they're judged by the major hires that they make. And those are high variance, you know, maneuvers to begin with, right? Like nobody's got all the secret sauce. I mean, Pat Chun's bacon was saved, honestly, by the fact that Nick Rolovich, like, coveted himself out of a job, because everything we saw, you know, since then, you know, tells us that like this guy was going to be a problem at some point. He was going to do something stupid. He was going to do something.
Yeah.
Like he just like, he's a, you know, whatever. I don't want to get too deep in it, but it's just like he was going to be an issue at some point for some reason, just because of who he is. And Pat hired him and he was going to have to get rid of him. Rolovich gave him a get out of jail free card. So he did. And then, you know, of course, fell into Dickert, who was hired by Rolovich, right? Like Pat didn't hire Dickert. Dickert was hired by Rolovich. Pat, you know, makes him the interim because, you know, it just kind of made sense to do that. And then, you know, he's like, all right, well, let's give him the job. And, you know, at that point you're like, okay, well, and look, I mean, I can't remember what your position was on that, but mine was, I don't know, man, that doesn't seem like a great idea. And then, obviously it's worked out pretty okay, but it's still been a pretty short amount of time, you know, that has happened so far. So anyway, the variance is like mostly tied up in your football and basketball hires. Whoever comes in right now is not going to be probably making a football or basketball hire for a while. Unless, you know, the Cougs are like amazing this year and somebody hires, you know, Dickert away.
Well, so just to wrap it up, cause you know, just
we
fuck
got
off,
a million
Pat.
other things
Like
to talk about.
fuck off, Pat. Like whatever. Like fuck off, dude. Like you at the few interactions we had, you were nice to me, but I'm sure you were nice to a lot of people that you just stabbed in the back right now. So whatever. Like I good. Have fun with being in the goddamn middle of the Big Ten for however long getting fired. So I don't know. But anyways, let's talk about this. So a lot of people kind of have asked us a few times. You know, it's been a conversation in the premium Slack of like, would they hire a basketball coach before they hire an AD? And the answer is absolutely they would, and universities do it all the time. So
they will. They absolutely will. There's no question.
It's well in motion. It's well in motion right now.
Yeah.
Schultz said by the weekend, we know we cannot trust Kirk Schultz timetables.
I'll never understand why he does that.
I hope Noella's wife just tells him to be like, stop doing that. Like stop. Yeah. Like at some point says that to him, because it just has gotten him into nothing but trouble or made him look silly. But you know, I think they're working on a hire. You know, obviously Schultz and the interim AD are involved. Remind me, I can't. Her name is now
Ann McCoy.
Ann McCoy, thank you.
Yeah.
But so Ann McCoy involved in that. But so they're going to get it done. It's interesting, Jeff. So you wrote in detail about who could possibly take over, and you and I probably, I think we're on the same page of who our top two would be.
Yeah.
And it's weird to say, but the continuity piece, but it's just wanting to, you know, maybe all the players will leave, but let's kind of try not to get all the players to leave and not completely start from scratch.
Yeah. Let's at least try to keep some of them around.
And just too, there's a couple of these guys, especially one that that you suggested and we talked about. It actually could be very good. And so the two that we thought immediately were the associate head coach Jim Shaw and former Wazoo assistant, now Florida assistant, and we'll say friend of the podcast, John Anderchek. Both of those guys seem to offer, like Anderchek recruited a lot of the guys that are currently on the team. And then Shaw, obviously, it seems like the players love him. You've seen a lot of players advocate, current and former players advocate for, or hearing that the current are. But yeah, it's tough when the stuff with going down to the WCC, it kind of changes like who you can get out there as free agents, or not free agents, but from another school. It changes like where you can hire from. Because like suddenly like Mountain West schools, it's like, well, they're probably not going to come to WSU. They're coaching the Mountain West. So, things like that. But I actually believe, I think Shaw, as a defensive coach, obviously he showed this year was, they kind of, he had just the perfect defense for that set of players, and it worked so well. And when he was gone, it seemed to like not work as well. So it seemed like he had a good grip on that. And, he was successful at Division II, very successful at his alma mater. So he's been a head coach for, his guy seems like he kind of deserves a shot at it. At this point, he's been an assistant here at UW, at St. Mary's, lots of places. So that's, you were thinking, okay, we'll probably be all right with him. And then John, we were just talking, we just saw what he could do at Wazoo. Like he's, and we do know him well. And his, like, he's just so, he's so intelligent and analytical, but also has a great knowledge of basketball. But really it's that recruiting. Like he brought in just so many of like the best players, the best recruits that have ever been at Wazoo, and the best like freshmen that have ever played at Wazoo. And he brought them in. And in positions that we talked about a lot while it was happening, in the positions like the 5 and the 4, where that's not where WSU usually has their best freshmen. So it was just incredible, his ability to help turn over the roster every year when all the people would leave. He was really impactful there, and I I kind of feel like he's got a good mind on offense, but he also understands the value of a good defense, and that's important. But yeah, Jeff, I know some of your thoughts are similar, but what do you think of those two, and then who else would you see as a candidate?
Yeah, I mean, in-house is my preference, just like you. I think you have to, and by the way, so what I wrote on the newsletter is like, normally I don't think this is a good idea, like to do it just for the mere fact of trying to keep it together, or trying to like hold something, hold on to something that was already there, right? Because it's going to be different no matter what. So I think the express, like doing things with the express purpose of that, I think, I don't know that it rarely works out. I just think it's not a good strategy. Like, I think your best bet is to try and figure out, okay, who's your leader long-term, right? Like, who do you want here long-term? Who's going to take you in, not just like 1 year from now or 2 years from now, but 5 years from now, right? Like that's the way you should usually be thinking. But in this case, where we don't know even what conference we're going to be in 2 years, I think it does make, and especially coming off of a season that was, more successful than any we've had in, a decade and a half. I think it does make sense, to try and think of, okay, if we hire this person, are we going to be able to keep it together a little bit? And I don't mean it in that way, just give the job to anybody, right? I mean, Jim Shaw seems like a perfectly capable coach. Like he, you mentioned the, success he had at Division II. It was massive. Like he clearly can coach. He's got deep, ties. He's coached, at the Division I level, high level Division I basketball forever. right? Like he was on Kelvin Sampson's staff at Oklahoma, and he was on Lorenzo Romar's staff at Washington for almost a decade. And, so, I mean, there's all this stuff that says, the guy knows his way around. So that would be my first choice, I think, would be, handing it over to him. I also think that, as you mentioned, Andrushek, I called it like a swing for the fences kind of hire, right? Cause he's still so young. I think he's 31, and it's like, that's mega young, but also like, maybe he's just that guy. I tend to think maybe he is. And he's going to get a head coaching job sooner rather than later, I think, somewhere. So just, all of that together, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that would be great. Again, gives you a chance. He's got relationships with the players that go back, years and years, right? Not just, from their time at Wazoo. So I think that would be great too. So either one of those I think would be fantastic. Other guys that I think are intriguing that make some sense to me. I think there's two other guys that stand out to me. Chris Victor, the coach at Seattle University. What he's done in 3 years there. So it's always sort of like, to me, when you're looking for a coach, like one of the first things you want to look at is, does he elevate the program like way above what they've been? Right. Like, being just a little bit above what a program has been, to me, it's like, okay, that's nice. That's kind of the Mike Magpio thing, right? So that's another Smith guy who's the coach at UC Riverside. We played them earlier in the year. Like he's elevated them a bit, like definitely above where they've been, but not like, whoa kind of thing. Victor at Seattle U is like, whoa. And he took over in really terrible circumstances. The guy he had been the associate head coach for, had been assistant for at Eastern, Jim Hayford, was accused of using a racial slur. He resigns, and all of a sudden Victor is the head coach 1 game into the season, right? All he does is go out and win the league, the regular season title, win the Coach of the Year award. And you're like, okay, well, so he did it with somebody else's roster. Well, 2 years later, this year, they didn't win the league, but they will post their highest Ken Palm rating ever as a program. Now the program's only been around since 2010 or something like that, right?
Yep.
I think
so. It's 15
2009,
seasons,
something like that, right? It was Division 1 back in the day, then Division 2 for a long time, and now back in Division 1. And the record wasn't as sparkling because they, in true Wazoo fashion, maybe this is signaling he's destined. They lost a lot of close games. Like they lost his.
He's our guy.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't look up his Ken Palm luck rating, but it couldn't have been good. So, I look more at, sort of some of those, qualitative things, and, they were very good.
Okay. So just to 327th in luck.
In luck. So there you go. Yep.
Yeah.
I figured it had to be something like that. So anyway, he's intriguing. He's definitely defense forward, which is, typically a thing that we, like better at Washington State, or seems to be more successful at Washington State. So all those things, like, I think he's very, very intriguing. And then the other candidate, for similar but different reasons, right, is David Riley up at Eastern. So if you're going the mid-major route, either one of those guys look pretty good. Riley, we know he beat us, not this year, but the last 2 years before this year. His teams actually are the opposite in that they are offense forward, and they do really big, fun things on offense. And so, if you wanted to go that route, you could go that route. He seems to be really excellent at identifying talent. I think he's largely credited with recruiting the Groves brothers. Steel Ventnor's another guy, because he was an assistant there for 10 years before he got the head job 3 years ago. So seems like a really talented guy and a really good coach too. So, if you're going to go the mid-major route, which is really all you're going to get if you're going for a sitting head coach, I think you feel pretty good about either one of those guys, and I don't know if we need to go defense forward maybe you are who you are as a program, but also like you're no longer having to compete night in and night out in the Pac-12. I mean, there's something to be said for building a team that, competes with Gonzaga and St. Mary's, but I don't know. Maybe offense forward isn't like a deal breaker anymore, given that you're not facing the same kinds of competition and athletes that you were, needing to stop before. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
So I definitely, what I think is that it just seems from watching coaches like it's easier to build a very good defense than a very good offense. You can build a good offense, but to get to like elite offenses, like top 25, like WSU finished in defense a couple of times in the last few years. That's the defense seems easier because defense, obviously individual players can help, but philosophies and cultures can have a huge part in just getting guys, because most of the guys you're getting are athletic enough to play defense in Division I basketball. And so like it's just a matter of getting them to buy in. And it just seems like there's more, especially of teams outside of the elite, that, the top 10 type teams, like it's you more see that if they play if they focus a ton on offense, they play terrible defense. And we saw that with like Ernie Kent. Like Ernie actually had, some decent offenses, but his defenses are always abjectly terrible. But I feel like if you play a defense, you can win some games just even if your offense isn't great. You can win some games just because your players are going to hit some shots sometimes, or you can prevent turnovers, you can prevent offensive rebounds, things like that. So I just feel like there's a lot of philosophy type things that you can build into a defense that kind of create a culture of like effort and things like that. So I that's why I'm burned by our, we had two offensive focus coaches in between. And I know Ernie's like a special case because there was some other stuff there, but let's just say offensive focus coaches in Bone and Kent in between two defense, one extreme defensive focus coach and then one coach that would rather, focuses first on building a defense before an offense. So that just kind of is like, oh, can we just get the defensive guy? And so if you look at, if you're saying it, and let's just say there's a scenario, which may be the scenario, where the two outside hires, well, I mean, John will be an outside hire, but two people haven't been part of this program before are Riley and Victor. Like, I'm leaning Victor. And on top of that, Victor's, what he's done, like you detailed what he's done at Seattle. They had never had a top 150 team, and he's had top 150 teams the last 3 years.
Three of them.
Three of them. Not even a top 190 team, I don't think. But it's just so above and beyond. And then you also look at, but then when you look at Riley, it's been impressive because when Shante Legans left, and I'm probably saying his name wrong, but when Shante left, he took everyone with him, or they all bolted. Like that program is down to like 0 players basically.
Yeah.
And Riley kind of got it back, and they actually had a decent season, for a big Sky team like the next season. And then he built 2 good teams, and so that's impressive. But he kind of has just taken it back to the level that Shante had it at already. Yeah. And so that's kind of a difference to me, because I agree. Like, I want to see, like, these mid-major coaches, I want to see that they are doing things that their predecessors couldn't do. And that's why Victor, it's just so impressive to see. And then obviously the defense. So I'm just I'm like, okay, if it's going to be outside hire, I would, bring in Victor. I didn't know much about him until 3 days ago. And now I feel like I know everything about him.
I didn't know much about him until like last night, basically.
Okay. I would say 1 day ago.
Yeah. He's also got, some international guys on his roster, which is, I don't know how deep his ties are there or what. He's got an Australian, one of his rotational players from Jamaica. Like I don't know what, his connections are there, but I do know that, you really do have to have international players to succeed at Washington State. So I think that's maybe a point in his favor as well. So I get the sense that whoever they hire is not going to be out of left field. It's not going to, it's like going to be Shaw, or it's going to be Riley or Victor or something. I don't think it's going to be, I just don't think it's going to be some sort of like shocking, like who kind of hire. I don't think any, Power 5 or Power 6, I guess, still assistant is going to take that job unless his name is John Andershek, right? Like, because I think that, there's just going to be a lot of, you're going to, like, probably a lot of people remember, the story around Leon Rice when we hired Ernie Kent. Leon Rice, a WSU alum, coach at Boise State, supposedly we tried to get him for the job when Ernie got hired. We tried to get him for the job first. And as the story goes, and, I don't know that it's ever been, fully reported or anything, but the story goes that Mark Few told him not to take the job, that it was a bad job, it was a loser of a job. Don't take it. And whether that's true or not, it is believable in the sense that head coaches will often say to assistants like, man, I don't know, you shouldn't do that. Like that's a job killer. That's a career killer or whatever. And just with the uncertainty around the program, I just don't think you're going to get any kind of like, hot up and coming assistant to come take that job. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. So then you're like, okay, well, who would take the job? Okay, Greg, Jim Shaw would love the job. John Andershek would love the job. If you're the coach at Seattle U or Eastern Washington, yeah, you would love that job too. Like that's kind of, that makes sense. So you're probably, doubling your salary at least, to make that change. You're going to a school that might end up in a real conference in the next couple of years. You don't know for sure, but probably at worst is ending up in the Mountain West, which is a step up from, the WAC and the Big Sky. So, that's kind of your pool. And I don't think you need to go find I just don't think you need to go like to the MAC or something, or the Missouri Valley to try and find, a mid-major coach who will fill your needs. You got two of them kind of right here. So I think that's kind of what it is. If I were to guess, I would say that it's going to be Shaw or Victor or Riley. I think those are kind of the three names. I will be pretty, I won't say like super surprised, but I'll be mildly surprised if it's not one of those three.
Yeah. Cause as you mentioned, like all of them would say yes.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, it's not like when we asked. Yeah, exactly. But so you mentioned the MAC, and actually, I'm not going to talk about this game yet. But the Washington State women are in the quarterfinals of the WBIT, and funny enough is they host Toledo, and a former basically chief operating officer of the Wazoo Athletics, Brian Blair, happens to be in Pullman right now for that game. Because I'll tell you, you could ask us to name athletic director names, and we cannot go deep on that, because that is something that is coming out of left field. But from the moment Chun left, people said Brian Blair. I saw it everywhere. Go get Brian Blair. Yeah, so I gotta think that he is talking to Schultz and whoever else.
Yeah.
While he's here.
Yeah. I don't know how fast that could get done. I mean, you sort of alluded to this earlier. AD searches tend to take a bit longer. They do a ton of vetting. Usually speed is not of the essence, right? Now, the fact that Chun got done so fast at Washington, I would suggest that he was a candidate back when they hired Dannon. and that they had done their full vetting of Chun at that point, so much so that they felt comfortable, 6 months later, to hire him. Obviously the school would know Blair really well. He's been at Toledo now for 2 years after being at Wazoo. I don't know how long he was at Wazoo, but it was a while. So there's that. I would expect Ann McCoy would be a candidate as well, although she's been, I don't know, man, she's been in the athletic department for 20 years. Like, I'm not sure that's usually who you kind of go to, like that kind of a person who seems to be maybe more of a, I don't know, good soldier, I guess, like for lack of a better term there. Mike Marlowe's a name that came up. I have no idea how much Schultz would entertain that. So he was Moose's kind of right-hand guy. He's also an alumnus. He's the athletic director at Northern Arizona. He's been there for 6 or 7 years down there. So, maybe he's a candidate too. And then, and then it's like you said, after that, it's your guess as good as mine. So who knows? But Blair, he seems to be very well regarded, very well liked. Was sort of seen as the athletic director in waiting while he was here. And then, he went off to Toledo, which not unusual, for somebody to go off and get experience. And, again, I have to imagine he'd be thrilled to come back. So, yeah, I'm going to throw my weight behind him, man. Let's get Brian Blair.
Yeah, let's do it. Cause I'm not tracking.
I know so much about this.
Yes.
We should hire
so
Brian.
You know
Blair.
What? Every person I've seen is like Brian Blair. And so I was like, sure, let's go, Brian. Come on. Come back home.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds great. Get
Sounds
the top
awesome.
job.
Let's do it.
It's very easy. There's nothing weird going on. Don't worry about it.
No big deal. No big deal. Should we talk beer before we start talking games?
Yeah. So we have to replace an AD and
a coach.
Fun. What a week.
Yep.
What a week. What a month. What a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about beer. Jeff, what the hell are you drinking?
Okay. I went into my fridge and selected one of my favorites, one of my annual favorites, the Tough Love Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout from Crux. This one, oddly enough, has been in my fridge since 2021. Didn't even know it was kind of hiding in there. So yeah, so I grabbed an old one. It does say on it, you can age it for 1 to 3 years, and we are now approaching the 3-year mark. So it's probably a good thing I drank it because it would have been expired, Craig, and then I wouldn't have been able to drink it. So.
Yeah, you would have been screwed.
Yeah, I would have been screwed.
I definitely don't have any beers over 3 years old in my basement.
Definitely not. But anyway, so I picked Tough Love because this is us as Cougs, right? Like it's always tough love. It's like, bad things happen, shitty things happen to us, and we keep up that tough love, and we continue to love our university even as we get kicked in the nuts. I will say from a beer standpoint, the lot of like the malt, the oatiness of it, like that is like really strong at this point. The chocolate, vanilla, and cherries, there's definitely some chocolate. The vanilla and cherry flavors have faded a ton, which I assume would be expected because I'm tasting a little vanilla. I'm tasting almost no cherry at this point. Which is really interesting because I normally drink these, pretty soon after I buy them. I don't normally let them age a long time. So this is definitely a different experience than what I'm used to having whenever I have one of these. So, but yeah, still delightful. A full pint of a 14-ounce beer or 14% beer. See, I'm already, we're an hour into this thing, and it's doing its job. It's definitely doing its job. What about you, man?
Yeah, so I've had Tough Love many times. It's interesting. It's actually, the brewer that made Tough Love came from Deschutes, and it's quite similar to the Abyss in that it uses molasses, and so it's got kind of that body, that kind of different sweetness it gives to it.
Yep.
Kind of a hardiness, I'd say. But yeah, it's good beer. I think I might have a few downstairs. I went through most of them, but at one point I had like a 2013, a 2014, up to like a 2017, and then they put it in the really big bottles, and I was like, no thanks. And now they're in like the in between size bottles. But yeah, I am drinking from Fast Fashion in Seattle, Backwards in Heels West Coast American Pale Ale. Because it just kind of feels like WSU is walking backwards in heels right now. Just having a hell of a time. I think this is. There's something special about this, and they don't have it on the can, but it was a collaboration with Aslan Browers, Aslan or Oslan. I'm Sherwood has corrected me on that before. Oslan. I don't know. Browers, Bosk, Bottleworks, Fair Isle, Floodland, Headless Mumby, Holy Mountain, Elk, Pike, Stillwater, Stoop, Seattle Cider, and Yonder. So a lot of. I would love, Jeff. I would love to do a little trivia.
Okay.
Okay. When I say the name, you tell me if it is a brewery, a cidery, or a beer bar.
Okay.
Some of these will be easier for you because you've drank
All
them.
right.
Oslan.
Brewery.
Yes. Browers.
Bar.
Yes. Bosk.
Cidery.
Brewery.
Brewery.
Bottleworks.
That's a brewery.
It's a beer store in Wallingford, Seattle.
Damn it. That was my first gut reaction too, as I was going to say, but then I was like, wait a minute, that rings a bell. Well, I suck.
All right. Fair
I'm not
Isle.
doing well. That's a brewery.
Floodland.
Brewery.
Headless Mumby.
I don't think that's a brewery. Let's go cidery.
Brewery.
Damn
Lager focused brewery in
Son of a
Olympia. Holy Mountain.
Brewery.
In a movie and a band, I think. Ilk.
Ilk. That sounds
Ilk.
like a bar. That sounds like a bar.
ILK.
A bar.
New brewery in Olympia.
Damn.
Started by Pat, former brewery at Three Magnets and at Matchless.
Right.
They've made some damn good beers.
Hell yeah.
Pike.
Brewery.
Pike.
Yeah.
Stillwater.
Brewery.
Stoop.
Brewery.
Easiest one. Seattle Cider.
Cidery.
Yonder.
Brewery.
Cidery. All right.
Damn
you
it.
did okay, Jeff.
I didn't. That was
did
shitty.
okay. Yeah, I think you failed. You
I
failed.
think so. I don't know. I don't know if I got a passing grade. Did I get 60% or better? I maybe. It's probably close.
How many people skipped that? Like
Son of a bitch.
everyone?
Yeah.
So no one heard you fail because everyone.
That's true.
Plus,
Nobody
plus
listens
30,
to
plus
this part of
30.
the podcast.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the things that people do listen to, but
Yeah.
we won't mention your failure, Jeff. Again,
Thanks. I appreciate that.
yeah. But anyway, the beer is good. It's a real light
good.
pale ale.
Whew,
It's
we made it.
West Coast, good aroma, all that good stuff. Good job, Fast Fashion. Anyways, so things that actually happened: basketball games. NCAA tournament basketball games, and don't let the fucking fact that the coach is gone now ruin these games for you.
Nope.
They were still they're so special, such a special thing. I've already talked about, it meant a lot to be there. That's why I kept, drunkenly trying to get Jeff there, which I swear, like it felt like it was going to happen. But yeah, so you could have been on the flight with Kalen. It would have been a great time. But yeah, so it was great to go there and such a weirdly fun thing about the NCAA tournament is the open practice they have the day before. So if anyone's ever been, so in the first round, the day before the first round, all the teams that are playing in that arena will have open practices throughout the day, and there'll be about an hour long, 45 minutes to an hour long. And so anyone could come in and just like watch the practices, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. That was really cool. And I felt like it was like when you're at or there's like I've seen some big concerts like Taylor Swift concerts or whatever. They'll sell merch the days leading up instead of just at the event, so people can actually like watch the event. So I was able to hit the merch and just got probably too much stuff, but I was just so excited. I'm like, I'm at the tournament. So that was really cool. But then Thursday came up, and man, the nerves hit because Wazoo men played their first NCAA tournament game in 16 years on Thursday against Drake. Like it was crazy. Like it was just crazy to even think about. When you wake up on Thursday, it was like the Cougs are playing an NCAA tournament game today.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I was thankful that the game was at, 7 o'clock or 7:30 or whatever it was. Partly
like at 9:30 at 9:30 where we were at the game.
For me, it was, I spent all day at work. I had games on, a side monitor all day. My students were watching, they were having fun, but I was like, okay, at least I don't have to, try to, I don't know, watch the game during the day or, get sick, something like that. But my kid had a band concert. And so I was like, oh my God, how am I going to swing this? And I was like, wait, the concert starts at 6:30. Seems like an hour. Maybe the game, a lot of times these games don't start on time. So I was like, okay. And then it did start a little late, got home on time. And just like watching it was just, it was surreal. And, to finally be back and to see it. And the game itself was such a, it exemplified so much of what made this season great. They, for large portions of the game, they didn't play great. Drake was kind of, at times getting what they wanted. And, the Cougs were, struggling at times, but they battled and they fought, and, they got a huge assist from, Drake missing a ton of free throws, which was nice. But you know what? I'm not going to apologize for any of that shit. Like, how many games have we played where the other teams made like fucking 90% of their free throws or whatever, and we lost, right?
Exactly.
So like, I don't give a shit. Like, you made 40% of your free throws. Well, make your fucking free throws next time. Like, I don't really care. And, we talked about luck earlier, like how, we've referenced this so many times on the show. Like, the Kyle Smith teams just had horrible luck as measured by, Ken Palm's luck metric, which is, like basically how many close games you win or lose is basically it. And it's like, this year was finally, winning a lot of these, close games. And in the Drake game was, obviously the final score was not close, but it was a close game throughout. And to have that, come back our direction and get to experience winning a tournament game, God, it was just so fucking fun, man. And I was, we did a FaceTime, you and I after the game, you FaceTime me and I got to sing the fight song with you. You faced the camera out so that I could, see the yell leaders or whatever leading the fight song. Yep. And I was like, this kicks ass. I got to sing along with you, and my kids are coming into the room going like, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, we won, and so yeah, super duper fun. The game itself, like, I don't know, I'll probably watch it again someday, but not a work of art, but just again exemplified what this team was all about, which was just playing great defense, just really having a ton of heart and fighting through to get a memorable victory. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm going to remember this team for.
Yeah, and have a guy that Andrei Yakimovsky who came in as a freshman and was not a great defender, but even during his freshman year, we saw him get better. He drew the number one assignment on the number one guy on the other team.
Yep.
Tucker DeVries, and shut his ass down. Like
Yep.
most of a lot of DeVries' buckets were Yaki wasn't guarding him, or when a double screen was set on Yaki.
Yep.
Like it was just. But even like, if they screen and switch and then he's got Jalen on him or he's got Isaac on him.
Isaac was on him.
It's exactly, we kind of said this, there'd probably be a bunch of guys, but it was Yaki most of the time. And what a game. And then in addition to that, he hit 2 of the biggest shots of the game when WSU fell down 6 twice. He hit a 3 to cut it to 3.
Yep.
And, and we were sitting there playing great defense. But we get to the end, we get to 6.5 minutes left and we're down by 8. And then it's just, Isaac takes over the game, gets their big out, Darnell Brody, who
was having a really good game.
He was having a really good game, although he did finish with an 83 offensive rating. But yeah, he was having a real good game, particularly defensively against us. But what they adjusted to in the second half and late is to go smaller and basically get Isaac where he can be in one-on-one situations out on the perimeter against Brody and using his ability. And so because what Drake was doing was when he had the other big there, it was easier for them to squeeze in on Isaac and make him give up the ball. But he just went to work and he scored a few times, and then he drew the last 2 fouls on Brody, just attacking the basket, getting offensive rebounds, or just trying to dunk over him, stuff like that. And then once he got out, man, my phone blew up because that was such a moment. I was screaming the left, right, left, right, left, right. Probably a few more explicatives before I started that. Whichever doesn't know, that's when a player fouls out. You yell that as they walk back, and then you say, "Sit the fuck down" when they start sitting. So I was yelling that, and I guess it caught me. I saw a clip. It caught me on camera doing that, and so my phone just blew up. By the end of the game, I had like so many notifications, like it was ridiculous. But yeah, even Amanda said her relatives were sending her pictures and stuff like throughout the game. But yeah, it was just so cool. They came back, and then Isaiah Watts, like what can you say? Hitting that 3-pointer and then hitting 2 free throws to clinch the game, but hitting that 3-pointer to go ahead with less than 2 minutes to play,
Huge.
just pulling it, just pulling it. They were passing around, and he maybe could have, posted Isaac. But he said, fuck this, pulled it, buried it. That put us in the lead for good. Lost our minds. And then, there was a timeout right after. We were just losing our minds. Like, it was so crazy. But then Drake goes down. Drake completely falls apart after that. At that moment, Drake, fell apart. Multiple turnovers, and the Cougs hit their free throws down the stretch. And the only bucket that Drake got was that, the Cougs were just trying not to touch him. So it was just a incredible way to finish. And like you said, what they've done all year, they've just closed down the stretch so many times. They've been able to identify in the second half, strengths and weaknesses of strengths of them against weaknesses of the other, and then exploit it. And that's what they did. Obviously they went small, and Isaiah Watts in an NCAA tournament game played 22 minutes. Who was calling that at the start of the year? Who was calling that?
Yep.
But yeah, it's just a crazy game. I was so glad I got to watch it with our friend PJ, who writes at Cougs Center, and he was there all weekend with me. So we went nuts. We were hugging. I was crying. Obviously, I called you. You saw me crying.
Yep.
Just an insane moment. It's wow, we won an NCAA tournament game. Washington State, won an NCAA tournament game. It was just crazy going to the arena, and it says March Madness, and then it says Drake versus Washington State. And we were such a trendy upset pick. Everyone's picking upset because it's 10-7, and they got the big scoring, the big scorer on the other team, but just incredible. Like just to think about like the journey with the Cougar basketball over the last 16 years from when it was like this before, and just bam, like we just won a game in the tournament, like for the first time since I was fucking 23 years old, like 22. So that was just crazy. Like so I let out quite a lot of emotion. And yeah, it was so fun. So fun.
Yeah. And then we went on to face Iowa State, which was a challenging game.
Hell of a start.
Start.
That was fantastic when we got up 7-0, but then you kept thinking like we should be up by more because we were missing a lot of open threes.
I mean, we should have been up like
a lot of
2 or something.
We were missing easy, buddies inside. Which kind of how Drake started too. We missed a lot of easy shots.
Mm-hmm.
But we were just locking Iowa State. It wasn't just that they were missing, but they just weren't getting good shots. And this is a team that just shot like 80% in the first half against South Dakota State.
We were
on
getting
Thursday.
Everything we wanted offensively.
Yep.
We weren't necessarily finishing them all, but we were getting all the good looks, and we were like, all right, like here we go. Like we just need a few of these shots to start dropping. And
I'll tell you, the Iowa State fans were so nervous, like at the start of that game, because they were like sitting on their hands, like literally sitting there, because it was almost completely Iowa State fans in there. Don't be surprised about that.
You could tell that. You could tell that on TV.
Yeah,
that was not a secret.
Yeah, it felt. But once Iowa State hit that first three to make it 7-4, that got them into it, and then they were. I would say they were like consistently loud. It wasn't like they were screaming when we were on defense, but when Iowa State started going on runs, you kind of felt that energy. So it was that was an interesting experience, like just being basically like a complete road game in the NCAA tournament. I know it happens all the time, but like it was nuts. But they once they finally pulled back and tied it, because WSU did kind of maintain a lead around 6 or 7 for the first 12 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But and it looked like they might have been able to carry that big of a lead into half, but then they just kind of fell apart. That last, like, Iowa State started to get going in that like last 4 minutes of the half, and then suddenly it's tied at half. And my optimism had dipped considerably, because now you're tied at half with like the really, really good team.
Yeah. I mean, you're thinking like, all right, if we go into halftime with, a 6-point lead, an 8-point lead, a 9-point lead, something like that. I mean, Iowa State's too good. Obviously they're not going to just go away. They're going to come back. They're going to come at you. You'd like to have that buffer, and not having that buffer felt like a real missed opportunity. And of course that's kind of what happened in the second half. And it was a lot of, kind of what we talked about before, which is, okay, their defense is really, really good. They trap and they force you into some uncomfortable situations, which we handled really, really well early on, but then, it started to unravel a little bit. And I hadn't watched them that closely before that game, but, we talked last week about sort of what their statistical profile indicated. And sure enough, that's like sort of exactly what it was. Like they frustrate you. They make things really difficult, and to the point where you either make a risky pass or you jack up a three, and not a good three. Right. And that's what we saw in the second half from our offense. And, we started settling for threes, and I think, some fans were, seemed to be pretty frustrated by that. And I'm like, I understand being frustrated by it, but also like, that's just kind of what happens against Iowa State. It's why they're so good. Like, I don't know, man. People, it was like, during the Bennett years when people would say like, God, teams just settle for so many mid-range jumpers against WSU. Why don't they stop doing that? And it's like, well, like that's all we're giving you, and you can continue to bang your head against the wall. trying to get something different, or you can just take the easier route. And, at some point you do get tired of banging your head against the wall. And it looked like that's kind of what happened with us. Like we looked like we just got worn out from fighting against them. And we're like, yeah, we have this, semi-open 3. Let's just go ahead and take that. And it was, good shooters. I mean, it was Yakumovsky, it was Jalen Wells. It was, I guess Miles Rice isn't a good shooter at this point, but he took, a couple of open ones and
he hit one as well.
Yeah. And he hit one as well, but they in the second half, they didn't fall. And, at that point it's very difficult to win if you don't, hit some of those shots. And, so honestly, I felt like we gave them, I mean, I won't say we gave them our best shot, because I mean, our best shot would include, making a whole bunch of shots or whatever, but we gave them a good shot. We just didn't hit as many shots as we needed to. Iowa State really had to work for it. It was not an easy game. It was a difficult game for them. And, I felt like, all around, just from a process standpoint, we played really well. But obviously process doesn't matter when it's, you lose and your season's over, and, so bummed out, but I couldn't be mad about the game. I mean, I pretty much called you right after I got done watching it, because I didn't get to watch it in real time. I had to take my wife to the airport, and, it's, when I called you, I was like, man, I just want to talk with Craig. I'm so bummed right now. Like it's just, I'm not mad. I'm just like, I'm sad. It's over, and I don't want it to be over. I want this to go forever. And, and it being done was, not a great feeling, even though they played pretty well and gave Iowa State really a heck of a game.
Yeah, it was interesting when you called, because like PJ and I we kind of went through more of that like an hour before you or whatever.
Right. Like I finished it like an hour later.
And when you called, you were like so bummed. And I'm like, oh my God, like you're seeing myself like an hour ago.
Yeah.
Like just like the fact it had just ended. And yeah, so it was that was interesting. So we talked to each other right after both games. But yeah, it was it just felt like they were in it. You felt like there's a possibility until about 5 minutes left. Yeah. Then they started going on the kind of kill shot run.
Yeah.
And we weren't getting anything good. Like,
no,
we were hitting some shots, but it was just not good. Like, it just felt like a struggle every time we went down, and they were good at limiting, what our bigs are doing. Now you look at the 2-point percentage, but that was mostly Miles and Jalen hitting mid-range jumpers, and Miles got a few layups, but otherwise, Jalen really kept us in it in the first half, and then he wasn't hitting shots the same way in the second half, because he was hitting a lot of tough shots the first half. It seems like he was missing the easy ones and making the tough ones.
Yep.
And then he just didn't, the second half, he didn't hit many of them at all. And no Coug did really. So yeah, that was just, it's how you go losing by, what was it? 11 when you're tied at halftime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, it felt like they just had guys that hit more tough shots than we did. And that made the difference. I mean, obviously they had a few more.
They hit a ton of tough shots.
Free throws too.
They hit a ton of tough shots. Like they were taking contested mid-range, they were taking contested threes, and they were just like, I mean, some of them were open. Like, I'm not going to say they were all contested, but like there were a lot of contested shots that they hit. And you just kind of, at that point, I don't know, man, you just like tip your hat. Like, what else are you going to do? And that's what they did. And so, yeah, it's a bummer. Sad that it was over. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was looking at flights to Boston. Like, I was like, I don't know, man. Let's see what those flights to Boston are looking like. So save my family, $500 or $600 on flights and then however much more on hotels. So probably for the best.
Yeah. It was a bummer. Incredible season though. Like, it just a dream come true. I think we'll probably talk about the season more There's just so this would have been all about that if not for other things.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just a incredible season. And yeah, just it didn't end in like a devastating way, just kind of like a sad way, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, probably maybe a little better than like losing on a last second shot or something.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah, it was, you know, just cool that, you know, we made it to the second round. Like we didn't go one and out in the tournament. We got to play 2. You know, I was thinking about how I might have to stay there. You know, I was just gonna, you know, I just had to just stay in Omaha for 3 more days.
Yeah.
Either take a bath on the hotel or and change my flight and probably you know take a bath on that
Take a
too,
bath on
or
that
I
one
would
too.
have just stayed. Yeah, just to stay in Omaha, which I was not looking forward to. Like, no offense to Omaha, but I was just like, I would know that my wife was alone with their kids at home, and they're probably driving her crazy, and I'd feel terrible. But luckily, you know, I got to have a legitimate reason to stay, and then my friend Kalen got to come out because he couldn't come until Friday, and so he was able to come out and see. And there was several Cougs that I saw. I know one of Zane's friends. He actually stayed at the same hotel. I saw him when he came in on Friday. So more Cougs got to come see him because of that. More Cougs overall got to actually come to Omaha. But yeah, it's just and then just to play 2 games and not just have it be one, and actually get to play a really good team too. So that was fun. Like the intensity of that game was insane.
Yeah. I mean, they got to measure themselves against somebody awesome. I think that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk more about just the season. I think, you know, when we have less to talk about in the summer or whatever, just talk about, you know, some great moments in a shitty year, and that was certainly one of them. Now, the women's team, and we'll talk about this briefly because it's getting late, but they are in they have been playing this weekend and this past week. They've played 3, or was it 2 more games, and they've advanced to the quarterfinals. And because they are a 1 seed, they've got to host all these games. So there's been those extra games. So basically, they look pretty, you know, very clearly the better team in their first games. They get Santa Clara, and who'd they play on? The one I actually watched. Who'd they play?
First game?
Yeah, the second game.
The second game was Santa Clara.
Santa Clara. They really, you know, it was kind of close that they just pulled away at the end.
Blew
They
them
were
out in
looking
the
very
fourth
much the better team. So it's been interesting to get to see them, you know, after the rigors of the Pac-12 conference, to actually play some not Pac-12 teams. And, you know, their non-conference schedule was tough too.
Yep.
So they've actually, you know, enjoyed some success, and it's cool that they get to play, you know, the maximum amount of games at home basically this year.
Yeah. Yep. Because they only got the 1 home game left. Even if they win it, semifinals are at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indiana, which is the home of Butler basketball, but most famous, right, for being the gym used in Hoosiers, right? So people know.
So yeah,
I don't know. Do people
they'll
still
play-
watch Hoosiers? I don't know.
I'm sure people still watch Hoosiers.
Okay.
So yeah, they'll play on Thursday, which is probably today if you're listening, or
Yes.
yesterday. I don't know. So you'll play that, but I think, you know, this podcast is probably become outdated pretty quick. So probably hoping you're listening to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they play Toledo on Thursday night for a chance for Indianapolis.
Woo.
So yeah, very exciting stuff. So that'll be fun to follow tomorrow. You know, Bella it'll be Bella's last game in Pullman. Some other players as well, but so it's cool that they get to do that. I hope some people come out for that.
I hope so too.
But yeah, Jeff, sorry to have more time to talk about actual games in this podcast, but there was just some other stuff going on. But yeah, again, you know, podcastversuseveryone.com. You can have a free subscription, which gets you all the newsletter content and all podcast content. But if you want to sign up for the premium, if you just feel like you want to support us, you could do that. And then you also get access to our premium Slack chat, which is pretty fun. It's just a bunch of Cougs talking and, sometimes, like sharing what we know. It can be fun. It's fun.
Yep.
So we got that option on podcast.
And
yeah, go ahead.
You and I are about to record a members only Q&A episode.
Well, you booked that?
You didn't see that, did you?
No, I wasn't. I missed it.
I was like, hey, throw a few questions in here. Craig and I'll record a quick Q&A after we're done recording the regular episode. So yeah, we're going to do that too. We'll post.
Oh, I see it. I see it. It was right before we went on. I missed that. We'll
post that at the Slack too. So.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, yep, we're going to be posting that. And then, So, Jeff, with all that, I'll say, especially right now, go fucking Cougs.
Go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated.
And
support union.
Support a union. All of it.
Woo.